Hello and welcome to Explorers Log Live. It's 7:30 and hopefully everything's running correctly. Oh, my partner here, Pink Pickles, doesn't want to be on camera. So this is my first time doing a live event on YouTube, so hopefully everything will go well. But as always, no matter how well you plan for something, something has to go wrong. And I actually had to get a new computer before tonight because surprisingly, my in-law's cat bit the edge of my surface, and I didn't realize it was biting it. I thought it was actually rubbing up against it. But when I heard a crunching sound, I was wondering what it was and didn't realize till later when I looked at it, the cat bit into the screen and actually cracked it. Has a nice spider webbing that goes out from the corner in. So she trashed my computer and I got a brand new Surface. So I'm not going to complain about that. But unfortunately, there was a lot of new features which I did not know about. So I want you to know I was doing a mad rush just before this was going to go live tonight, trying to figure out how to deal with these great new options I have no idea how to control. So hopefully things will go well this evening. So welcome to Explorers Log Live. My name is Mike Girard, and I do exploring. I've explored in the Northeast, New England for quite a long while, and also I explore places all around the world. So just recently, I had gone down to Mexico for an expedition. And all the time when I'm going down there, I often try to do emails or make calls to let people know what's going on. They're always interested in what's happening, what we're finding. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that shortly. If you haven't looked at the videos, there are some videos in there in my YouTube account. But I thought this year to do something different. So I actually did what I call the daily dispatch, which was just on the spot. Would just grab my phone, capture some video on the moment, and if we got any kind of internet connection at all, or when we went in to get supplies, then I would just push it out. And you know what? Even though it was rough on the edges, I kind of enjoyed it. And it kind of gave me a spark for trying something a little different, something like this. And also the videos I've been posting out, all of them I'm trying to make for a quick turnaround because I've got a very busy schedule, so it's hard to get these things in. But anyway, that's enough about how we got here. So let me first give you an update. If you saw the introduction for this going live, I did a little preview. I mentioned about something exciting. So we had gone on an expedition in Mexico to a cave. This cave in Mexico was filled with Pleistocene period fossils. So we're talking about Ice Age. And the professor I was with, Luis Espinosa, he and his family, who are also cavers, and Luis Espinosa, he's a cave biologist. Uh, Luis had gone there to look at the blind cavefish and shrimp that are in there for his study. And his niece actually found what she thought was just some fossils of some sea life, nothing really out of the ordinary. If you've gone in caves, limestone caves, it's not surprising to find fossils. So she brought it home, and when they got a closer look at it, they realized that it was actually not sea life. Not I can't remember exactly what kind of sea creature she thought it was. They realized it was actually a molar of a mammoth. So that's what spawned the expedition. My associate and I, Mike Sandone. If you haven't seen his videos, I highly suggest take a look at them online. Sandone, Sadone. He does some great documentaries. He's a much better video producer than I. I think you'll really enjoy it. He's been doing some stuff with these ribbed inflatable boats. A lot of fun. So check it out. Well, Mike and I actually joined Professor Luis to go to on this expedition. This was in 2023, and to our surprise, uh, in the end, we ended up finding far more fossils than we expected. Our first venture was into underwater sections of the cave with my underwater ROV, and then later visits we moved on to a muddy section, and we pull out quite a bit of fossils from there. And this last visit we really pushed hard in that muddy section and pulled out some amazing fossils. Now, I think it was close to 800 fossils we pulled out, and we had a permit from uh, the Mexican government to do this, and all those fossils are now in Mexico still. But uh, we weren't sure how old they were because Ice Age is quite a long period. So we had five fossils carbon dated, and we just got them in. Well, within the past month. And I was shocked with what we found out. So I'm going to pull them up so I can read it correctly because I don't have the greatest memory here for these details. So let me see what I have here. So carbon dating. So the fossils we carbon dated were from a bison, a mammoth, a bear, a sloth, and a glyptodon. And I'm sure some of you probably out there saying, Glyptodon, what is that? Well, a glyptodon, I suggest you look it up. It's like a giant armadillo, but we're talking about an armadillo about the size of a Volkswagen bug. So it's incredibly large, and it's a really, really interesting creature. So anyway, we got these carbon dated, and the bison, we weren't really surprised. That was around a little short of maybe 9,000 years old. The next one in line is the um, the mammoth. The mammoth was actually, oh no, actually it wasn't the mammoth. It would be the bear. The bear was uh, 12 and a half to 13,000 years old. So that was exciting to see. That's quite a bit of difference between 8 to 9,000 to 12 to 13,000. Next was the glyptodon. The glyptodon was closer to 13, possibly a little over 13,000 years old. Then there was the mammoth. The mammoth's close to 14,000 years old. But the one that really shocked us is a sloth. We had gotten pieces of a jaw, teeth, and other fossils from these giant sloth. They could be like 30 or more feet tall. Matter of fact, the biggest one, and I'll see if I can show you a picture in a little bit, was a giant claw that Professor Luis had found. It was totally by accident, too. And that's sometimes some of the greatest things we find are completely by accident, just serendipity. So he was moving a rock in a water area that was in his way where it was going to work. And as he lifted it up, he realized that that claw actually, I'm sorry, that rock actually was a giant claw, 17 inches in size. That is incredibly large. Well, that's the sloth. I believe this is actually from the fossils we got recently, though, not that claw. That's ended up being close to 24,000 years old. Now, I was shocked to hear that. I was only shocked because of the age, but now think of this 24,000 years old. And the youngest one we had carbon dated was eight and a half, 9,000 years old. That's close to 15,000 years of fossils in there. That's not typical. Having such a wide span of time of fossils contained in one cave. And I think the reason why I'm not going to get too much detail about this is because the the cave has a lot of manganese in it. And I could get into the why it's in there. It's a part of the natural process of how these limestone caves are formed. But anyway, this one seems to have quite a bit, and it's embedded itself into the bones. So I think the particular conditions of this cave gave this perfect scenario for them to be penetrated by the manganese very quickly and preserve them. And you definitely can tell the difference between fossils that are from that cave and other fossil bones you lift because they're incredibly heavy for their size. So that was just the first exciting thing we found out. So first, different ages, incredible to hear. Then 15,000 years of fossils in there. And then the next exciting thing that we found out was there was one fossil. And actually, I'm going to show you. I actually have one here. This is not one from the cave in Mexico. I actually got this one from online. I bought it. It's actually something that was found in America. This is definitely Ice Age. This is a metacarpal from a megabison. So we had found a fossil that was pretty much from here up, this part of the metacarpal. And the way it was broken down here looked very unusual. So after examining it, we suspected that it was crafted as a tool by human hands, but we didn't really have a way to tell. That's not anything we're experts on. So Professor Luis actually consulted a professor he knew. I believe it was Georgia University, or I no, I think that's where the carbon dating was done. Nonetheless, he consulted this other professor somewhere in a college in America, and that professor did a scanning of it with a laser, very detailed scanning, analyzed it, and right after we got the carbon dating results, we got results from his investigation of our possible human crafted tool. And to our surprise, the evidence said yes, it is a human tool for flint knapping. So they used it to do chipping of the flint and so on to make tools. There's a great demonstration of how this is done by Mike Sandone in the documentary about our expedition. I think I may have a link to it in my YouTube. If not, I'll put a link there so you can get over to his site and see that you can see more detail about this expedition. But now that's even more exciting because now we have a cave that not only has fossils from over 15,000 years of the ice age, but now we see evidence of human activity in or around that cave. So it's quite a rich site for investigating. We're done right now. Been there over the past 3 years. I think we've had our fill of it for the moment. We may return if there's many reasons why we could be returning to it, but I'm sure the work in this cave is not finished. There's a lot more to be done within that cave. So very exciting things going on. Um, I can't wait. We're probably going to try to carbon date more of these fossils so we can see if the age goes back even further. Um, but it's really interesting. Matter of fact, before I move on, I'm going to show you. I'm going to see if I can do the share screen. All right, select which window. All right, so I can. Yeah, you would think I work in technology, and it's the first time in a long time I've ever felt uh, unsure about anything I'm doing with technology. This is, like I said, a first for me. Let me see. Oh, I can show you a lot of stuff, but I'll quickly go through them. I'm going to put it over on my other screen, and then I will share that screen. All right. Let me see if I get the right one. Nope, that's not the right one. There we go. All right, you should see it now. So here we are in the cave. That's Professor Luis. That right there is Mike Sandone. And what you probably can't see right here, and let me get my little button. Oh, I guess it's not going to work here. Let me minimize this. I'm going to turn something on so I can point out things a little better. Or maybe I'll just use my mouse. Why don't I do that? We'll work out those details on the next one. All right, so let me go back here. All right, so right here, you probably have a hard time seeing it, but that is Professor Luis's son. He's actually going in there and he's fishing out some fossils. Actually, it was another molar from a mammoth or a mastodon, and he was the thinnest one. And this was so tight, he actually had to exhale and then push himself through. And his breathing had to be very shallow because if he breathed too much, his chest would expand and he would feel it being kept crushed down by the packed mud under him and the top of the cave there. But let me see what else we got here. All right, that's cave. Oh, there, this is the one that I told you that was the tool that's we've was confirmed to be crafted by human hands. Let's see that. Oh yeah, there's the smooth end. See, this is what one of the first things that stood out. That doesn't look broken. Looks very smooth. But let me. I'm not going to spend. I don't want to spend too much time on this. So I'm gonna quickly go through this. Mike and Luis again. Here we are eating a breakfast. Oh, vulture outside. They have tarantulas. Not sure how you guys feel about tarantulas, but they're definitely all over down there. But the funny thing is that we see things like tarantulas, whip-tail scorpions, and vampire bats. But all those things aren't the things to worry about. The things to worry about are the microorganisms. And if I have some time, I'll tell you a little bit about what happened with that. But let me quickly go through. There's the one I told you about, the giant claw of the ground sloth. There he is with it, holding it up after shortly after he discovered it. Is the crawl. So this is part of the shell of the glyptodon I had told you about. We found not only this, but many other pieces. Matter of fact, I have one here. Again, this is from Mexico. I'll hold it up to. This is a little uh, piece of that assembly you see there. All right. This was this year, uh, and we're just getting there for the first day. Here's some. We also found some uh, pre-Columbian pottery within the cave. So there's lots of archaeology there. Hold on, I'm gonna actually. I don't want to have to fish through all. I put all this folder together of all these pictures for a presentation we recently did. So I've got quite a bit in here. I want to get right to particular ones here. Let me see. Um, right. Here's one that I was really excited about. This, towards the last few days, I found and I learned about another ice age creature I didn't know about, a gomphotherium. And if you're saying, "Did I hear right?" You did. It's gomphotherium. I think it's GOMPHT Oh, man, wish I could. I'm not 100% sure about the spelling. It's Gomphotherium, Gompthere, I think. Um, so it's definitely a unique fossil. It's a molar from it. Had all the roots. It was a great find. I was really excited about that. But I just want to show you what I thought was one of our best finds, and we were so excited about it. If you haven't seen it already, you'll see why we were. This is a skull of a bear, and there's some discussion on which bear it is. We first thought it was a short-faced bear. There's another one which I can't remember off the top of my head now what the other one was called, Orleans or something like that. But we can thank Mike Sandone for this. He saw something in a concretion and he was working hard at it. And we kind of were doing our thing. And, he was very focused. And eventually, though, he found something and we joined in the effort. We got excited too. And then we ended up pulling out, he pulled out the back side of it. And then we joined him to pull the front to see what it was. And we were blown away to see it still had the fangs on it. So, this is the last thing we were looking for on our expedition, and I was so happy to see that we were able to find it and kind of bookends this expedition with the last creature we were looking for. So there's a lot more I could talk about this and continue on. I don't want to drag it on talking about this. The real idea I did the expeditions log for was more for a Q&A, and I Oh, let's see. So yeah, someone spelled it out. Adrian, my wife, Gomphoter. Thank you very much, Adrian. So, so that's fantastic. If you have a question, please put it in here. So that's what really the log was supposed to be, more of a Q&A, because when I do presentations, I often get questions, but I tend to get more questions after the presentation's done when I'm packing up than I do during the presentation, which is kind of odd. So I thought this would be a great opportunity, not only to just do a kind of casual chit chat with everyone about things that are going on, but also answer some questions. So why don't I take a moment? I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to go over some questions. I pulled up some that people have asked previously and that I've answered. The ones that I most commonly hear over and over. So let me see the questions. So, uh, have you ever been in a situation where you genuinely feared your life? Yes, I have. But the strange thing is, it wasn't while I was on an expedition so much. It was something back here in Rhode Island. So long ago, I used to do free diving in Rhode Island. And if you don't know what free diving is, that's basically where you go like you when you scuba dive, except you don't have scuba tanks. You hold your breath. You got flippers, you got a mask, and you get some weights, and you just hold your breath as long as you can, and you go as deep as you can. It's something that really you have to practice. Um, you got to make sure you don't push yourself too hard because you can pass out. If you go too deep, too far, and you can't get up soon enough to get a refill of oxygen and you're not really in great shape, you can pass out and end up drowning. Of course, trust me, I never pushed myself that far. What the problem was a friend of mine and I we were going out free diving. We wanted somewhere new. So we stopped, we had stopped at a dive shop, and that's because I had to get a new elastic for uh, my spear. And I didn't do spear fishing. He did. I brought it with me just in case because there are sharks around here. You don't know, I live up in Rhode Island, and the sharks often down near Martha's Vineyard and the south coast of Massachusetts. Sharks do roam at the near the open waters of Rhode Island. We're talking about great white sharks. Matter of fact, some of the the original Jaws was filmed down in, I believe, Martha's Vineyard. If not, it was in Nantucket. I forget which one it was. But you like to keep it on hand. Where I was actually going to be going that day was close to open ocean, so I thought it'd be smart that I would have the spear ready to go in case something happened. And trust me, nothing ever happened, but like to be prepared. So we're there and we're talking with the guy at the dive shop, and he suggested, he said, "Hey, I know a great place you guys might want to try. It'd be fun." And he told us about this area at the end of Jamestown. So if you get a chance to look it up, it's an island in the most southern portion of Narragansett Bay, and its tail end is facing open ocean. And I was like, "Really?" I said, "That sounds like a great place. And if this guy at the dive shop is telling us to go there, it must be fine." So my friend and I headed out there. Beautiful, calm water. We went out. It was fantastic. You could get pretty deep. You could see a lot of geology under there. There was a lot of fish of all sorts. In the summer, actually, tropical fish get pushed into the bay. So you'll see some unusual fish, not common to New England often if you hang out in the right areas. And then things started changing. What happened is that calm, placid, surface suddenly became a little more rough and rougher until it got to the point where I knew it was time to go in. So I tried to get back into the shore, and this is where I started to worry because every time I went in, the wave action that was striking against the rocks at the end of Jamestown was pushing me back out. So I couldn't get into the shoreline. Fortunately, I did have an inner tube with a basket in it, so I could throw equipment in there if I had to with a flag. You always have a flag if you're diving. So eventually, I just kind of hunched over the inner tube and just was waiting it out. I was hoping it would calm down, but it was just getting worse and worse. Meanwhile, I look out in the water. I see my buddy out. He's got more of a surfboard thing with his flag, and he's just lounging on it. And I'm like, wow, this lucky guy. He's out there having a good time, and I'm here struggling to get in. Well, I kept trying to push to get in more and more, and couldn't do it. Eventually, I did get close enough, and the waves were so bad that I got thrown up on the rocks. I lost the flipper. I lost a bunch of stuff in my basket. I got all cut up, and I had to grab onto the rocks so I wouldn't be pulled back out by the wave pulling back out after that. So it was a very, very scary moment. So now here I am on the shore. I see my buddy out there still relaxing as far as thought. Later to find out, no, he was in the same situation as me and was just as scared. So yes, that was the scary moment. It's where I was fighting for my life against the ocean, and I thought I wasn't going to make it. I ended up fortunately with only cuts and bruises. And, you know, it taught me a lesson that be careful. And I probably thought later that this cave dive, sorry, I mean, this dive shop person probably didn't understand we said we were free diving, not scuba diving. Even scuba diving is dangerous there, I later learned. But I think he misunderstood what was going on and misinformed us as to where best to go. So now I don't really free dive anymore, but it is something. If I do it again in the future, I know some very safe places to go to. All right, so let me see if I can find another question. Let me see what we got here. Um, what's the most physical challenge? What's the most physically challenging expedition you've done? Well, one of the most physically challenging expeditions I've done is um, it's crawling through. Let me see. Yeah, there was when I did this expedition to go deep into a cave where there was, I think, over 1,000 feet of very exhausting crawl. So exhausting that you couldn't really, like, you couldn't walk, definitely. And for most of it, there was, you could always have to be hands and knees for most of that. And then I should actually probably, I'd say the opposite. Actually, less of it was hands and knees, and then more of it was the belly crawl, where you're just inching along like an inchworm because you barely had any space. So you got yourself up, your back up just a little bit, and then you pushed forward with your feet. So you're just inching along for over, well, 2/3 of 1,000 feet of crawling. Also, this was right after there was a big hurricane in the area. And we were a little worried because it was drizzling and we were worried that more rainfall would come in. And when you're doing a crawl like this, it's not where you want to be because you have nowhere to get above the water. It could come rushing through there because it's, caves are like the drainage system of nature. So we get caught in this big rush of water that's coming down from the higher points. And as we're going through the toughest part of the crawl, we could hear a roaring sound in the distance. As I did it, it was frightening and exhausting. But when we got to the end, it was just a little waterfall at the end that really made the sound. It was being magnified and channeled down that passage we were in. So there was nothing to worry about. But we got through it, and then we went up to a chamber above where we was stand-up room. We walked for another quarter mile where we got these beautiful photographs of cave pearls. That's the real reason I went there, is to get those cave pearls, photos of them. Now, going in was difficult, but now going out was even more difficult. So much more that during that same crawl that was difficult, where you're inching along, I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to do it uh, without having to literally stop and rest for quite a long while to re-energize, because being wet now and tired from the time going into the cave, now coming out, I had very little energy left, and that crawl knocked the wind out of me. So once I get through the worst of it, I actually did finally stop, sat up, rested for maybe 15, 20 minutes, and then pushed out for the rest of it. So I'd say that probably was the most challenging of all. I do it again, definitely. I think I would prepare more for it. That's something, a lesson you learn sometimes, is that you think you're ready for these expeditions you go on, and then you go out and do it. And then when you get back, you're like, oh my God, I definitely was not prepared. So then you realize that next time, work harder, get more prepared, because you never know what you can expect. Every cave you go into is different than the last. All right, let me see. What advice do you have for someone who wants to start exploring but doesn't know where to begin? Well, the first thing I want to say is the number one thing to get started is just to start. It doesn't matter what it is, it doesn't matter how simple it is. The first thing you have to do is get through what I call the phantom mile. And if you're wondering what the phantom mile is that the phantom mile is that distance between something you want to do, something that's different, maybe something that you're a little afraid of, you're unsure about yourself, you don't know where to start, you don't know what to do, and there's all these things that roll around your head that make you never get up to give it a try. And that's usually the hardest part of every expedition is that phantom mile, or even just starting to do anything is that phantom mile, because to overcome that tendency to not do it, to not get up off the couch, whether it's because it's easier, TV and snacks or whatever it is, playing a game is so much easier and safe, and you know how to do it. There's a lot of reasons that will make you stop, but you have to get over that. And once you start, though, if it's something that really you're into, it'll keep going. So that's the number one thing to do is don't let yourself be stopped by that phantom mile. It's going to seem scary. You're going to be unsure. And trust me, I'm unsure today. This is like a phantom mile for me because I've never done a live YouTube presentation. So a lot of reasons I had being nervous for tonight with everything that went wrong, but I still did it. That's the number one thing. Just push yourself through it, because once you get going, the momentum just picks up and starts taking over. And then once you get through that phantom mile, it's so much easier after that. So, number one thing, just do it. Do anything. Number two is start local. That's how I got started. It was a long while ago. Uh, I had hiked, I had been in Boy Scouts, and I enjoyed all those things. And I I actually was dating someone who went on a trip to Europe. She had plans. There was a solo hike around Europe. She had already planned before I had met her. So I kind of had a lot of free time and I needed something to burn that time. So I thought, you know, why don't I try to see what interesting things are? So I kind of had a lot of free time and I needed something to burn that time. So I thought, you know, why don't I try to see what interesting things are around here in New England? And started to poke around, see what other people are doing, checked out things that people thought were interesting. And that's where the momentum started picking up for me. Started with the easy to find things, going where everyone else did. But then once I got comfortable with it, then I started looking for my own interesting things that eventually led me to cave exploration. So do something local, do something interesting, just get out on the trail. Maybe try to find something that people have forgotten about, people haven't gone to. That's sometimes to me makes it more interesting, is if it's someplace that most people don't go look at, you'd be surprised how many incredible things are in those, what I like to call the darkest corners, because no one tends to go to these places, maybe because it takes a little more effort. Also, keep it simple. You don't have to have fancy gear. You don't have to have much. A good pair of boots, flashlights, a sense of adventure. That is good enough. Only thing I would suggest is when you go out, have a time you're going to be back at your car and stick to it. If it takes you, you're going to have 2 hours of hiking. Once you get to the hour point, turn around, get out. Or if it's somewhere that's a little more challenging, I would say do like divers do with their air, when I should say cave divers, is 1/3 of your time in, then turn around and come out. That way, if something goes wrong, you still got time. So let's see, and follow your interests. I mean, what do you like? History? Do you like nature? Do you like, um, let's see, what else could there be? History or nature, or you could even do exploring. Doesn't have to necessarily be outdoors. You can explore things like exploring libraries. To be honest with you, some libraries are incredibly fascinating. Exploring ice cream shops. I've actually kind of done that when we've gone out hiking. My wife and I, sometimes just for kicks, we try to go to a different ice cream shop in the summer on our way back just to see what it's like. It's another part of exploring. We take advantage of traveling all around New England, seeing towns we've never been to. Matter of fact, it's a great way to reward yourself. I've always said, if you can get yourself out, maybe if you haven't seen, I have this thing called 5 to 9 adventures I started because I have coworkers who said, "How do you have time to do what you do?" And I said, "Well, I just make time. And sometimes it's right after work. I'll go out and just go somewhere and explore, go into a different part of New England. And since I'm not going to get home in time, I stop at some unusual local restaurant or pub and get a beer and dinner. And that's a little bit of exploring too. Get to know the area, parts of New England I've never been to before. Um, and like I said, with starting small, it's going to build up your confidence too. And rewarding yourself with some places like the ice cream or a pub or something like that, that also helps to keep you going. And I would say document your journey, take photos, take notes, keep a journal, because this is something you might want to share with others. I didn't really do that in the beginning, and I should have. So eventually I started doing that and started posting stuff online too because people were asking about it. And it's also nice to go back and look at those things that I've been to. If I want to revisit any of them, again, I have all the details, how I got there, where I parked, where the interesting things are. So I not only can I share it with others in the future, I can look back at it and go revisit those places, my favorite ones, because I've got all the details. It's a lot more I could add to that, but let me see. Let me move on to a new question. Um, so one thing I often investigate is inscriptions, petroglyphs, or inscriptions that are post-European visitation. And people have asked me, how do you tell if an inscription is actually historic or someone just carved their name in a rock? Well, I'm going to tell you that. Well, if someone carved their name in a rock, that is historic. Now, if someone carved their name in a rock with the date 2025, I guess not really that exciting to find. But you'd be surprised how long people have been doing stuff like that, especially here in New England. People started carving their names in rocks all over New England, especially in the late 1700s. It really picked up in the early 1800s through to the early 1900s. It was a big thing, and I still haven't nailed down exactly why it became popular. I think my suspicion is because the idea of getting outdoors and seeing interesting things outdoors became really fashionable in the 1800s and early 1900s. So that was we didn't have TV back then, and so people were going out. You can see postcards from back then, big rocks that people would go visit, and other geological features all over New England. So I think that's one of the reasons why, but I'm not 100% sure that's what really inspired them. But anyway, so how can you tell? Well, there's all different ways to tell based on how um, they're created. Like Native Americans, usually when they did their uh, making of petroglyphs, they would take rocks, like a piece of quartz, a much harder rock, and they would peck into it. So things that were done by Native Americans, you'll see it looks like they did a pecking, like little breaks in the rock, little tiny dots that made up the images. So if you see something like that, most likely it was made by Native Americans and probably going back at least to the colonial, pre-colonial, just shortly before that. But I think if you go all the way back to the woodland period, uh, that definitely they were doing it then and even previous to that. But the problem is, depending on where you are, depends on how long they last. We have very harsh weather here. Petroglyphs don't last long. If there was also pictographs, if there are any here, you're probably not going to find them because they're weathered off. But if you live in the Midwest, a lot better. You can find them much more easily. European settling. Now, here's something you can tell. If you see someone's name, look at how they wrote their name. Style. There's a unique style depending on which period they were in when they did it. So you can actually date things by the style of the lettering, by the style of the art. There's no definitive way to say absolutely it's from that, but looking at that and also looking how the cuts are, if it's done with a steel tool, early steel tools, you'll see like a, they're like lines that have like a point at the end because they're jabbing it in, they're hitting it with a hammer. So definitely distinct look of them, the style of their art, style of the lettering, and so on can tell you quite a bit. And often modern stuff, they don't put as much energy in because we have a lot more things to do with our time. So they're much more shallow, not really detailed, look very rushed and uneven. So if it's very artistic and well done, definitely 1800s back. Uh, and again, you can use find out more about it based on style and lettering. So that's basically how you can tell. I'm not a professional like this. This is just a rough idea. But with those in your hand, you can get a good start. There's a lot of literature out there about petroglyphs and inscriptions from early European visitation to America on. So I highly suggest. Let me see, Edward Lennox, I believe. Let me just go over here and grab. Yeah, here's one. I knew I'd have one handy, and you can get. And this is a great example of one great thing you can get. I believe this is a former library book. Look at this by Edward Lennox. Let me make sure that. Oh no, sorry, this is not Edward. This is Gary Garrick Mullery. Edward Lennox is this one here. He is probably the one I would recommend most of all. He's got quite a reputation, and this is one of his really nice ones. There we are. Edward Lennox, picture rocks. So I would suggest if you're interested in petroglyphs and inscriptions, these actually, I think this is mostly about uh, the things like Native American, but yeah, this is mostly Native American stuff. But he has some that talks about modern uh, inscriptions too. So check it out. You can find them on Amazon. Let me see what else we have here for questions. Let's see, we're at 8:10. Um, all right. Have you ever found something that couldn't be explained? Well, let me see. Has I ever found something that couldn't be explained? I can't say that I haven't found anything that couldn't be explained. I found things that um, it's hard to nail down exactly what is the truth of what happened. So, uh, for example, I can kind of talk about the cave we went to in Mexico again. All those fossils that are in there. One question that we were trying to answer is how did they get there? Now, there's several different ways. Number one is they were just washed in there because there is a stream that during the rainy season, when it gets really heavy rains, and you can see that during that wet season, this stream pushing all this material inside the cave. So it could be that. It could be that animals would come and get water there and die, or maybe they were killed there by animals and then the bones get washed in. Or it could be from animals themselves. It's not uncommon for large felines like a saber-toothed tiger or modern ones, even when they get their prey, they'll drag it up into a tree and they'll eat it while being on the branch. Now, caves in the summertime blow out cooler air because of the difference of barometric pressure. In the wintertime, when it's uh, you know cooler on the outside. Actually, sorry, I got it. Yeah, when it's wintertime when it's cooler on the outside, it's pushing out, sorry, warm air. And then when it's summertime, when it's hotter on the outside, it's pushing the air in. So two different times it's venting or pulling air in. I shouldn't say pulling; it's being pushed in. So the felines being on a branch over that to enjoy the movement of the air wouldn't be uncommon. And they could, and once they finish eating, they drop their bones down from the tree, which could have fallen into the cave or then be washed in. Now, the last option, well, actually, there's a couple of animals themselves could have just fallen in because they went to go get water and they got too close to one of the pits and fell in. Then there's the option of early man. Early man hunted animals, and if they had an encampment nearby, they don't want to keep the fossil, not fossils, I should say, the bones and that nearby because that would attract animals. So they would throw it into the cave as a garbage disposal. So there's all these things it could be. Now we don't know the answer, so that's more like what we find. It's not so much that it can't be explained. The problem is it could be explained many different ways, but we can't definitively say based on the evidence we have so far which one of those it was. We could kind of guess, or maybe some of our guess might be a little bit of a bias. I mean, part of me is thinking it's humans, especially since we found other artifacts in there with human artifacts. But that's a little bit of my wishful thinking because I would find it much more interesting if it was from human hands, because that would put him back quite a distance. Remember, 25,000 years for one of those fossils that were carbon dated. So nothing I can say that couldn't be explained, just things that are hard to explain exactly what's the right answer. And how do you stay safe in a cave or wilderness alone? Well, first of all, I don't go into caves alone. I will go into the beginning to take a peek to see what's in store, though technically the place that's the most unsafe, in my opinion, is the entrance because that's the one that gets exposed by to the weather and that, it becomes more unstable. But yeah, you don't go in caves alone. It's not a smart thing to do unless it's a small, cave that's, like 20 feet deep or something like that. I mean, there's some that, yeah, it's safe to go in, but the ones we typically go in, you never want to go alone. You always have company with you. You always have contacts outside of that who know when you're going to be home. And that's the same with the wilderness. I mean, I do go in the wilderness alone. So I always let people know when should I be returning, where am I, what are my coordinates, and so on. So that way they know that if I don't show up by a certain amount of time, that's someone should be sent out. And there are many cavers in the area that know the places I go to or can find it with the coordinates I give. And there are cave rescue organizations, or I shouldn't say organizations, or groups out there in each region to help out if you get stuck in a cave. But out in nature, I mean, just if I get stranded out somewhere, people can find me. But I don't think I've ever been somewhere where I was that far from the road, where I didn't know that if I walked in any direction for about a mile or two, more or less, that I'll probably hit some kind of road or something to be able to find my way out. Though everywhere is not developed here, it's pretty well developed enough that it's pretty safe. I mean, if you really want to um, get risky, you'd have to go out somewhere where there's undeveloped jungle, or up in Canada, the most northern portions of Canada. That's more like somewhere you could get lost and you would have to be rescued. But there is solutions for that too. And I do have actually a special GPS that has an SOS on it. So if I ever am out in somewhere like that, I can just press that. It'll send an SOS with my coordinates so people can come find me. So, but those situations, I don't go alone. So it's only locally around here where I feel safe. Let me see. Um, why did you start sharing the stories publicly now? Well, I didn't really start sharing them now. I've been sharing them for a while. First, it was with friends and family. And then friends told other friends about the stories, and those friends told other friends. So it got to the point where I constantly was being asked, "Hey, tell everyone about this story." Usually, to be honest with you, usually the stories that people like to me to tell over and over the most were the ones where something went wrong. Like I fell in a swamp, I slid off, some ledge I was climbing up, or I was like, like I said, the ocean where I almost got pulled out to the open ocean. So people like it to hear when things go wrong. But uh, I get kind of tired of saying the same stories over and over. And it was one day when I was in a coffee shop, a Starbucks. When I was there, and one of the people, or baristas as they call themselves, said to me, she saw this going on and on whenever I'm there. And she said to me once, "Mike, why don't you just put it online and tell them to go read it there?" And I said, "That's brilliant." So that's why I started posting stuff online. And then that continued on, and I started eventually doing presentations where I could tell a group. So that's kind of how I got started. Only recently have I been pushing out more and more because I'm getting close to where I probably retire from my day job so I can do exploration full time. So what I'm going to be doing is pushing out to now start publishing the books that people have been asking me to publish for quite a while. And so since that's where my career is going to change over to, I'm trying to make myself a little more presence in the online arena, so people a little more aware of what I do, and I can share it with more people. Let me see. Let me see what time it is. Oh, it's all right. So we got a little longer. I wasn't sure if I was going to make this a half hour or an hour. So, and if you don't stick with it to the whole time, that's all right. Like I said, this is the first time, so it's kind of just you know going, riding by the seat of my pants on this whole thing for tonight. Um, how do you research expeditions? Oh well, just like you do any research, just like you do research for your papers in college. Uh, you find what you can. You go. I tell you, libraries are a great resource. You'd be surprised how much you can find out from your local library. And you might think, well, what if I'm researching about these places all over the world? I mean, what, my local library is not going to have it. That may be true. Your local library may not have it. But here's the thing that a lot of people don't know is that Libraries have these interlibrary loan system. So if you can find a book that's available in a library somewhere, there's a good chance that maybe you can get it sent to the library near you. I've had that done many times. I'm fortunate enough that my wife is a librarian, so she is kind of like my research assistant because if I find something, I'll often tell her, I'll call her and say, "Hey, can you see if this book's available somewhere?" Because there isn't places online you can look to see if it's available in libraries all over the place. So she'll confirm it, find where she can get it from, and within a week, I have the book in my hands. And I've been really impressed with some books I thought would be very difficult to find. Books from long ago, or books that were published by like Yale University, a publication that locally no one had. I believe we got it from Washington State, some library somewhere over there. Even some interlibrary loaning can be done from Canada. So you can get quite a variety of materials. The other thing for research is just talking with the locals. You'd be surprised how much you can learn by talking with locals. Sometimes the stuff you hear them say, you can take it with a grain of salt. Some of the things are stories and so on, but out of all those things you're told, there's always that one gem that's is worth it. So talk with locals, interview them, and if at worst you'll get a nice lead for something, at best you'll learn a lot more because sometimes you'll find people are well informed on whatever it is you're researching. And universities, you can go. I go to the Yale Library on occasion, and there's a lot of great material in some of the libraries. Matter of fact, there's one in the library, and I can't remember the name right now. It's a special library that Yale has, and I wanted to get a copy of some pages from. I'm gonna kill myself for this. For one, I think it was the first president of Yale. Um, oh man, and it escapes my mind right now. But while I'm telling you about it, I'm gonna see if I can look up his name, and maybe it'll pop back in my head. But he had these things he had, which are called itineraries, and itineraries are like his little diary of all these places that he investigated. And I wanted a copy of some of the pages. He was actually had some mention about some inscriptions they had found, and he. I'm sorry, I'm just a little distracted. President. So I wanted to see those pages from his itineraries. No, he wasn't the first president of Yale, so let me do his early presidents. Uh, Let me see. I can go back here. Oh, Ezra Stiles. There we are. So Ezra Stiles. So his itineraries. I saw that Yale Library had a copy of the itineraries. I think there were 6 or 7 of them. So I looked it up and saw if I could go see it. But then I could get printouts, but they were charging me $20 for. Well, I thought they were printouts at least, and they were charging me $20 for these few pages I wanted. I thought it was a little over the top, to be honest with you. Well, I said, heck with it, it's worth it. And I paid the $20. And then a month later, I get this box in the mail. And it wasn't just one page. I got all 6 itineraries on microfilm for me, a copy for me, for my library now. Matter of fact, I think I have it right over here. Right here. No. Well, if I don't find it soon. Yeah, it's in one of the drawers over here. And you're wondering, well, how do you look at some microfilm at your home? You don't have to. Libraries have microfilm viewing machines you can go to, which are new digital ones. So if you want, you can take pictures, you can put them on a thumb drive, you can print them out. So it's really easy. Many libraries, there's a lot of them around here I can go to and use that um, tool so I can view it whenever I need to. But $20 for all of his itineraries. And Ezra Stiles, he was from, let me see. So he is, yeah, like late 1700s. So he was exploring New England in the late 1700s. I'd say a lot like I did exploring, except he had fantastic situation of being one of the first to be able to do that. He saw all the things for the first time that no one else had seen before. So it's great to follow in his footsteps. So look at these books, look at these journals and diaries and so on. It's fantastic. Always a great way for you to learn quite a bit about whatever you're researching. And it's almost time to call it quits here. So let me see if I can grab one more question. And then I'm going to tell you a little bit about um, the Explorer's Dispatch. Let me see. Is there a mystery you still haven't solved but want to? Mystery I still haven't solved but want to. Well, there was one that was haunting me for a while, but I did end up solving it. And honestly, it wasn't that big of a problem. It was just this old, what's called, thought to be a gold mine from a character named Dutchy in New England. And I had visited out to where it was supposed to be, and I never could seem to find it. When I finally did, I realized the first time I'd gone out there, I was literally like 10 feet away from it. I just needed to take a few more steps and I would have seen it. And it took me probably about 10 years. I'd given up on that portion, so I never went back to that part and looked everywhere else. So I know that area pretty well. It wasn't until I returned to my original, path I took and followed it further, I found it. But is there any I haven't solved? Mm, Probably is, but none that haunt me that much that I need to. Um, yeah, it escapes me. Maybe. Uh, yeah, I can't really think of any yet. That really. I mean, there's definitely some out there, but nothing that's really like bugging me. I don't lose sleep over it. So, all right. Well, let's see. I got 4 more minutes, so let me talk a little bit about the inscription. So, if you haven't seen already, check out the inscription. Sorry, check out the Explorer's Dispatch. You'll see part one, where a woman in Rhode Island had contacted me about an inscription she found along the shoreline while walking. Actually, shortly, I actually reached out to her recently to arrange going to interview her, which hopefully I'll be doing very soon. We haven't gotten a chance to get together, but it was probably like months before she reached out to me in 2024, I believe. And when I went down and looked at it, I wasn't sure exactly what it was. It was definitely unusual. But I was too busy with other things and didn't really have time. I had to prepare while I was returning to Mexico in March. So this was early in the winter of 2024. So I just did a quick visit, took some pictures, and I figured I'll get back to it later. It wasn't until this year I finally returned and took a closer look at it. And that's what I did the film about. It was my second visit, actually. And then all the pieces fell in place quickly. And it really surprised me to what exactly it was. It's one of those things when you first look at it and see where it is, it will puzzle the heck out of you. But once you know what context the that area, like what relation that area had to that shoreline, and you looked at it from the proper perspective, suddenly it made sense. So I was very happy. Not things like this do not necessarily you know get answered that quickly all the time. Sometimes it'll take years for me to put all the pieces together and be able to nail it down. I have a lot of ideas, but it's years before I can get enough evidence to say this is what it is. But this one, I'm pretty confident I've answered, and hopefully I'll be able to create the follow up of Explorer's Dispatch very soon. I hope to have it out this month. I plan on interviewing. It can't be this coming weekend because it's Mother's Day weekend. So maybe the weekend after that, I can get together with the woman who originally found it. I want to surprise her with my conclusion. I want to get that on video and then kind of put a whole wrap up together. And this won't be the last one like this. There are other interesting stories from around here that I really haven't done short pieces on. So that's what I'm going to do. And all of them are going to be done like the daily dispatch I did when I was in Mexico. It's kind of like I go out there with a camera and I'm not expecting to answer it right then. I'm just going to bring you along for the ride. You get to see what I see when I go there, see what my first impressions are. My first impressions, maybe, I don't know. It's kind of how a lot of them start, but it kind of gets a little bug in my head and I got to figure out the answer to it. And I'll bring you along for the ride and you can kind of see what it's like for me because I could do it where I wait till I get the answer and then do the whole piece as a single documentary, but I thought, no, let's do it like Explorers Daily Dispatch, like I did in Mexico, where you're going along how it usually happens, where I don't find the answer right away. And sometimes it could take quite a while. I may be doing updates on some of my go visits. Or maybe I might get lucky, like I did with this previous one, and get an answer right away and can enjoy the excitement of things turning around quickly. So I hope you'll stick around. Everything I'm doing on YouTube, this is just what I plan to do now. What it'll be in 6 months from now, I don't know. Might be something different. I'm just gonna see what this turns into. And if anyone out there has anything interesting that you would like to see me investigate, or questions you like to ask, feel free to reach out to me. Um, you can actually email me at Michael G. Michael G. It's pretty easy at michael-girard.com. You can also go check out my website. You'll see a link to a lot of the videos that Mike Sandone has done. So go there even just to check it out. You can see some pictures from our expeditions and other things we've done over the years. Um, so you can go to my website at michael-girard.com, or you can email me at michaelg uh, at michaelgirard.com, and I'll try to get back to you. Or you can just leave a message right here. With that said, I think it's about that time. Let me see what time it is. Yes, it's actually a minute over. So thanks for those who did show up for this. I hope you enjoyed my just casual chit chat about things we've done and a little bit of Q&A. Hope to see you here again, and go out there and go on your own adventure. And I'd love to hear about it. Thanks.